I never got into Warhammer or Warhammer 40k. I always thought it looked super cool, but I was never really into tabletop gaming until the past couple of years. And I knew that I would bankrupt myself on minis if I let myself get into these kinds of games. I do, however, love wanton violence against invading aliens. So I played through the remaster of the first Space Marine game not too long ago. Long story short, it was awesome. So I picked up a copy of the sequel. After giving myself a little bit of time to play other games to cleanse my palate, I dove in and found out that this sequel is every bit as glorious and addicting as the previous game. Like the first game, you play as the ultramarine Titus and are sent to the planet of Cadia in response to a distress call. When you arrive, you find that the planet has been overrun by Tyranids and fight a desperate last-stand battle for survival. Titus holds out valiantly, but in the end, he is overwhelmed and slain. Or is he? By nothing less than the will and mercy of the Emperor, Titus clings to life just long enough for the Techno-Priest to perform some insane operation to save his life and put him back into the fight. As his entire squad was wiped out on Cadia, he is given command of a new squad with a new mission to fight the Tyranid invasion of Cadia. The story perfectly nails the grim, dark tone that I obsess over, with a seemingly unwinnable fight, religious fanaticism, and a glimpse at the inner political workings of the Imperium. The gameplay is basically the same as the first game, but refined. The balance between and seamless integration of swordplay and gunplay really make this game stand out from the crowd of shooters. I'm not sure I'm prepared to say that it feels smoother than Gears of War, but it does do a better job of putting melee in an equally important position as ranged combat than Gears of War does. The most metal part of the game is when you have literally hundreds upon hundreds of Tyranid enemies swarming you and trying to climb the wall wherever you happen to be. Whether it's with a melee weapon slashing them as they breach the top of the wall, or with the grenade or machine gun trying to keep them from getting to the top of the wall, it is immensely satisfying to watch dozens and dozens of bodies just fall beneath you. The game has a few different multiplayer modes to choose from, with most being cooperative, but a few being your more traditional player versus player matches. More worth noting than the multiplayer, however, is the presentation and visuals. Cutscenes and music are well crafted to deliver a real sense of gravity to the storyline, and the game is absolutely beautiful. You've got the typical two modes to swap between as far as performance goes. Your performance mode that renders at 1080p and targets 60 frames per second, and your quality mode, which renders at 2160p and targets 30 frames per second. And as usual, I went for performance. I always prioritize frame rate over resolution. Unfortunately, there are some noticeable drops in performance mode, with the frame rate targeting 60 FPS, but often staying in the 40s and 50s during fights. Whereas quality mode does a much better job of keeping its stable 30 FPS target. Although in fairness, the frame rate only rarely drops below the 40s with performance, and that's very briefly. So I do still think that performance is the mode to go for personally. I'm absolutely not one of those guys who say that 30 FPS is unplayable, it has to be 60. But when the option is there for a frame rate higher than 30, I will almost always go for that, even if it doesn't manage to keep that 60. For fans of Warhammer 40k, Space Marine 2 is an absolutely non-negotiable must-play. For fans of third-person shooters, like Gears of War or Helldivers, I would consider this game a must-play unless you're one of those losers who refuses to play a single-player game. If you're just a fan of military sci-fi settings in general, it's still worth playing. Basically, unless you're a gaming pacifist who won't play games with realistic violence at all, you should play this game. It's not perfect, there are some frame rate issues, objectives do get pretty repetitive now and then, and the game's level design is completely linear, with no real side paths to take, but the game's strengths do far outweigh its weaknesses. My rating for Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 on PlayStation 5, Series X, Switch 2, and Windows is an A.